Ooh.
It's preparing.
Do we get to see if we know how many people are watching?
I have another separate browser that I'm gonna take a look at. Okay, I don't think it works the way I wanted it to.
We know how many people are watching.
Sorry, wait. I need to turn that. You know what happened? It started a new live stream, so I need to do this properly now and make sure it's working. Let me just give me a moment so I
Sure.
make sure that I'm in the right place. Why is it always so technically difficult to do this?
Well, it's the first time. You'll get used to it.
Okay, so I did start a live stream somewhere. What it looks like.
Oh, I can see the live stream.
You know what happened? I think it's the same thing again. It didn't start within the scheduled live stream that I had. And if I can't solve it, I'm not going to make an issue out of it. We'll just continue with this one. But hello. Okay, I see a couple of comments. Can someone who is watching us right now just confirm to us if we are in the scheduled live stream or if it's the new one? I believe it's a new one. Yeah. Okay, it's a new one. I confirmed. I just checked my own channel. Hello. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us. I have Kevon with me, and I'm so excited to do this live stream with him. It's as from the moment that I met you and saw what you were doing through the Maven Course Accelerator, I thought this is such a good topic that I would love to bring to my audience as well, because I think they would benefit extremely from this. So I'm so happy that you're joining me today.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me, Elif. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Welcome everyone who's just now joining us. So we'll just get started with the conversation because I do record all the live streams anyway. So it is going to be on the channel, but for anyone who is actually joining us live now, they'll be able to ask you questions as well. So I'll be looking into the chat for any questions that come up. Yeah, but I wanted to start off with your story. So I know you from the Maven Course Accelerator, and I've been reading your material online for a while now. So I know this story, but I would love for you to kind of tell us who you are, what you've been doing, and I loved the way that you kind of tell your story on Twitter, especially how you built your own brand in the past year or so. And yeah, let's start from there, and then we'll get going because that ties in really well with the topic that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, sounds good. Let me start by sharing a bit about myself. So I'm Kevon. I'm actually sitting in Hong Kong right now. I'm from here, but then at 15 years old, I hopped on the plane to fly to the US all by myself. And I still remember I was crying inside the gate as a 15-year-old boy. But anyway, ever since then, I graduated and moved back to Hong Kong, and because it's home here. But let me fast forward to the gist of my story. I have been a startup person all my career for the last 9 or 10 years. I think 9 years, yeah. Okay, so I've always been like the move fast, break things type of guy. And right before COVID, I was running a venture-backed startup, meaning I had a bunch of angel investor funding the company, and I was trying to build this software company. And of course, it's really hard, and I didn't get it to work. So around the end of 2020, so about a year ago, I decided my best choice is to shut down the company. So I walked away from the company, and then my baby girl is about to be born. So I was thinking, what should I be doing? And
Yeah.
I didn't know. So I just decided to take a break. But I'm the type of person that I cannot take breaks. Like when I'm taking a break, I'm like learning new things and trying new things. So I decided to start writing online. And I was never a Twitter person. I had a blog. I mean, I had written a few blog posts over the past many years, but never really actively writing. So for me, I was like, I had no brand online and no one knows about me. So how do I even start? But I didn't care because I was taking a break. So I just started writing, and the rest is history. Like 1 year now, this is the Kevon that you see writing a lot about different topics online. So
Yeah,
that's a
and
quick,
building
quick
guides and
short
providing
summary.
so much value.
Thank you.
Yeah, so to be honest, I've heard or read or talked about personal branding, building a personal brand. I know how valuable, how life-changing that can be. But I think the first time I was introduced to the term building in public was when I started to read your material and when I met you. So I think that really ties in well with, I mean, building a personal brand. I'm not sure if they necessarily mean the same thing, but I'd love to hear what building in public means from you. And then we're going to tie in that topic for our audience. We're going to tie in the building in public topic for job seekers, for new entrepreneurs, how we can use the building in public method in this context, which I think really applies well.
Yeah, sure. I think it is closely related to personal branding, but I would add one word to it. It's authentic personal branding. Because, you know, like when we look at the people around us on the internet or off the internet, we see a lot of people with branding, right? They look really nice, and then they have a personal website. It looks like they're the subject matter expert. But then to me, like, it's all marketing. We're all really good at creating this perfect image and position ourselves as expert. And to me, that's smart, but it's not very authentic. So building in public, if you just read these three words, it basically means you're not just like projecting your perfect image to the public. You are, of course, as an entrepreneur, you're building stuff, but at the same time, you're sharing a lot of behind the scenes in the process to people that are watching you. And when I say build behind the scenes, I don't just mean like the good things, the ups. It's actually equally important to share the downs. Like as entrepreneur, we're kind of taught to, be that perfect person so that you can find investor and all that. But it's
Yeah.
actually not true. I learned that it's not true. When you share that you're struggling, when you share that you have made mistakes, it draw more people to you because they feel like, whoa, you're a real person. You're not just like someone on stage doing a TED talk. So I think that's the key. Like it's authentic personal branding, and it's how you differentiate yourself from the rest of the people nowadays.
Yeah, totally. I think that's such a good point because uh in the past years, I don't think there was enough conversation about the fact that so many people are actually just winging it. Like we were just figuring out things on the go and as needed. And that's just the life of an entrepreneur. But as you said, we always try to paint this like really good image of ourselves. And now that you explained it that way, now I feel like I know the difference between personal brand and building in public a little better. And I will probably take a look at and review my own material as well and see, which one mine fits more into. But I've been learning. I've been practicing as well how to build in public and trying to implement your strategies there. Um, I think what's really important about it is that there is this piece of vulnerability and sharing your failures and downs and maybe emotions as well. which is often not something we talk about as entrepreneurs or job seekers as well. So, I mean, kind of putting it into the job seeker perspective or context, how I remember when I was in the job search mode is I wouldn't necessarily talk about my feelings of frustration or rejections and stuff like that. I know I would think about it on my own or maybe talk about it with my family and like get pissed off about the number of rejections I was seeing in my inbox, but I wasn't actually sharing that anywhere because I wouldn't feel comfortable with that at all. But there was actually a really good example of a student that I was following who was trying to find an internship. He had, I believe, immigrated from the Philippines, and he was trying to make his way through a professional career in Toronto. And he was struggling, and he was sharing his struggles, and he was just a fresh, like he was producing this fresh content for the first time because I was just used to seeing all this perfection. Anyway, so I want to now like kind of ask you, how do you see this method being applied to a job seeker or so I don't want to just limit it to job seeker because I also want to I know that there's a lot of people in the audience who are side hustlers. They're starting like their own freelance businesses. They're trying to gain experience in marketing, and they're just trying to maybe start off by doing freelance work or consulting work. So I want us to like kind of, well, if that's possible, to apply this building in public method to those contexts. And how do you see it, working in the job seeker or new entrepreneur mode?
Sure, yeah. This is the first time I talk about this topic in a perspective for a job seeker. So I actually took a walk this afternoon and I was just brainstorming myself like, okay, oh, this concept for entrepreneurs can actually work for job seeker. And the first thing I think about is that you shouldn't really think about yourself as a job seeker. I think if you frame yourself that way, you're just limiting yourself like, oh, I should start a Twitter account, I should post this all for finding a job. I think that's very limiting. But in a way, I think especially after COVID, like after COVID happened, I think there's a chance for more and more people to be entrepreneurs because there's so many opportunities online. So I would encourage you guys to start thinking like an entrepreneur. And what I mean is that, what I tell entrepreneurs is that they should not frame the story too nice and perfect because people can recognize when you do so, when it's all fluffy marketing stories. So when I look at how that relates to finding a job, it basically means that if you present your resume to someone, the resume is your fluffy marketing stories. You just make it up, right? No one knows whether it's true, but it's the cover of yourself that you present. And honestly, a lot of people, they might judge it and then they interview you, but behind the scene, they know this. They need to find out more about you because this is not the real you. So building in public basically means show, don't tell. Like the marketing stories and the resume are the telling. But what you can do better is that you can just start showing. And if you can go online and find out what you're passionate about and just start talking about it in different small ways. Like a lot of people would start writing blog posts, but that's quite hectic for a lot of people. Maybe you can just doing some short tweets. That's a lot easier to get started and start talking about what's going on in your life. Because if you imagine what people do when they interview you in person, they don't really care about what you go, where you go to school. What they're trying to find out is your values, your approach, your attitude, right? That's why they ask you so many questions and they're mostly open-ended. So in a way, if you know that this is what they're looking for, and then you started sharing your work, building in public, you can already show a lot of these like qualities through your writing. And I think I can share an example with you. Like oftentimes people will reach out to me on Twitter and say, Kevon, are you looking for a job? like I'm looking for like a content creator and I like your stuff so much, can you work for us? That happens a lot when you're just like showing all your qualities in public. So people don't even need your resume. They don't need to interview you because you have consistently show your work. So I think this is a really big mindset shift for a lot of people. But now that you have heard of it, I think this is the best time to start. I mean, everyone is sort of getting online. There are more opportunities there, and it's time to build your online presence.
Yeah, I totally agree that now is such a good time. I can't remember the quote right now, but there's this quote. I know, I'm sure you know it and other people know it too, but like best time was to start, something was yesterday, next is now, something like that.
Yeah.
It's really very true. And there was actually a couple of other points that I wanted to touch upon as well that you
Sure.
mentioned. One is about, so I get this question a lot from lots of people. Do I need a portfolio? What does my portfolio need to look like and stuff like that? And when I look at my own experience, I've actually never had a portfolio. What I had was a blog and my social media accounts, and that was just enough. Like, I know that, you know, recruiters, hiring managers, they just go online after seeing your resume if they're interested, and they just look up who you are and what you've done before, and your online presence is just more than enough to explain to them what type of person you are. Are you a self-starter? Are you, do you have drive to start new things? Are you curious? Are you a creator? What's your writing style like? Like, they can get so much information just by checking your accounts and online presence. And I think that speaks so much louder than any resume that I've seen. Because as you said, resumes are just where you try to present the perfect picture. And it's not easy to do it in one page. So we all struggle to put concise information on one page about all of our interests and all of our abilities. But creating online, doing this consistently, that tells a lot about what type of person you are. And I'm sure, like, as you just mentioned, you started to get, inbound opportunities, people asking you if you're looking for a job because you were creating online. It happened the same with me as well. And that is why on the channel, I talk about this a lot. When you create your personal brand, when you are working on something, people are more drawn to you, and people are more, there's a higher chance that people are able to find you and your work and to make the connection with their search and what you're able to provide to them. And you can probably also attest to this, but using Twitter lately, I've noticed that there is so much opportunities that aren't actually posted on job boards, but the job opportunities just come up in Twitter conversations. And I've seen so many good businesses hiring simply by Twitter conversations. And it amazes me. Like, it takes away so much work or also money of posting in a job board, waiting for people to apply for who knows how many months, because I know some roles just don't fill up for many months. And instead just replace that with Twitter conversations and, like, people quote retweeting what you asked for, and finding someone in the network, and it's just so much easier. Okay, so now that I feel we've proven that this method is definitely something that will work in the job seeker or new entrepreneur context, let's make it a little more concrete by talking about what type of content they could be sharing about. So what is relevant? I'm sure this is a question you get all the time as well, but what do we share? Like, what is important to our audience to know about ourselves, and what is important about our stories? What part of our stories do we share online?
Yeah, definitely. So personally, I break down what we can share into three different levels, or three different pillars. So essentially, when you look online, it has to fall into either one of them. The first one is, like, of course, you can share a lot of opinions about, like, how this is better than that, and okay, this Airbnb has a website like this, but you as a designer, you think this way is better. So you can share a lot of ideas and opinions. That's level one. It is, it's okay, but when people look at it, they're like, oh, you're just saying stuff. It's not very convincing. So that's level one. But then when you get to level two, which is your personal stories, like for example, you mentioned earlier today that someone might have failed a couple of interviews. If you can actually stand out and say, I didn't get an offer from this company, but then you share your little reflection about like why you think that happened, what you didn't do well, and how you can do better. This type of personal stories are the best to share because first of all, it's real. It happened. It's not just an opinion. And second of all, people are drawn to stories. And three, it really shows that you have thought it through. You're not just telling a story, but you actually reflected on it and you're improving yourself as a person. And when people see a person doing this, this is the best quality in anyone that you can hire. So this is really important, like personal stories. But the level three thing is exactly what I want to highlight here is if you can have a project that you're working on, it could be very small. Like my first project that I share in public is the building in public guide that I wrote in public. So it could be like a small writing project, or it could be like some design project, whatever it is. It has to be your own project. And as you're working on it, you build in public. Basically, you're sharing the decision making. Okay, why are you designing your landing page this way? Why are you presenting this to this type of audience? Why are you pricing it at $9 instead of $19? When you can share your thinking process, I think that's the most powerful stories that you can tell. Because remember how I said, like, when people interview you, they are looking for like your values, your approach, and your, what's the last one? Your attitude, right?
Yeah.
This type, like when you're telling how you make a decision about your project, you're presenting all three qualities at once. And I think that's super powerful. Like people can just really know, oh, this is who Kevon is. This is what who Elif is. They don't even need to ask you a question and they can see that. So this is pretty much my approach of 3 levels. Maybe I can repeat it. Number 1 is opinions. Number 2 is personal stories. Number 3 is build in public. Share what you're doing with a project.
I'm taking notes as we go along because I think this is extremely important. And I'm also like simultaneously thinking, what exactly does this give to a job seeker? And the first one that's about opinions, like Airbnb did this type of design, they could have done this. That is a reflection of someone's expertise, I think. And it also shows their confidence as well. So I'm thinking of like what types of behavioral things hiring managers, recruiters can pick up from these stories. And then the next one is your personal stories and learnings that shows the type of person you are, basically. And I know, like I've interviewed with a couple of companies a while ago. They were more focused on what type of person you are and how well you'll be able to fit into the team, more than the skill set even. So this is basically just addressing that for the companies already. And then the journey and thinking process on anything you're working on, as you said, like that just gives so much information on all kinds of areas about a person. So it is so valuable, especially the thinking process, like that shows how you approach problems, how well you address stressful situations, deadlines. Your decision-making process gives so much information, insight about you. So valuable. Totally. I hope it's resonating with you guys who are watching. If you have questions, leave them in the chat as we go along. But yeah, I'm gonna have timestamps later on in the video too, to have different sections. Okay, so I think the next question I wanted to ask was,
Hmm.
how will sharing my journey publicly help me build my personal brand? But I think we kind of touched upon this already. Like this, what you share is going to become your personal brand in a way, right? That's where we're getting at.
Yeah, I think we covered that. I guess I just want to mention that any brand, whether it's like a company brand or a personal brand, takes time to build. So it's not gonna be like you show up today and then you have a brand. No, it takes not months, I think years to. On the internet it could be faster, like maybe 6 months, but it takes years to build a solid brand. And what that means is that you just need to do it over and over again so that people recognize you for something. And I don't know if you guys have heard of the thing about if you have done it like 10,000 hours, then you're the expert of something.
Yeah.
A lot, yeah, a lot of people say, oh, nowadays maybe it doesn't apply, or maybe it's 1,000 hours. I think it applies. Like when you are deep into something for so many hours and you talk about it over and over again, you become that person. I think I'm the living example for this. You know,
Yeah.
1 year ago, I had no idea what building in public is. I started writing the guide. I didn't tell the story earlier this call, but I started writing the guide because I thought, okay, I couldn't just write individual blog posts reflecting my own story. That is hard to get noise on the internet. Like everyone is reflecting on their own journey. I needed to write a bigger piece of content so that people would read it and they would be like, oh, this is so good. Let me share it with my friends. So when I encountered the word building in public, the first thing I thought about is, oh my God, this resonates so well with me. This is how I live my life: honesty, transparency, integrity. So I decided, oh, I should talk about this. I'm learning about the topic, but I'm sharing the process with people so that they can learn as well. And you know what? When I launched the guide, 9 chapters, 10,000 words, I became the building in public guy, like one of them. So
You became known for the concept.
exactly. Like I wouldn't say I'm the go-to, but I'm definitely one of the people associate this word with. So that's pretty amazing. That shows that when you just like go deep into one thing and then talk about it over and over, you can become that person. It's possible. Yeah.
That's such a good example. Yeah. You start by telling something and then maybe that's your learning journey in your case, and you've learned it, and what you created is now associated with you as your own brand, and that's just so powerful.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I know that when we again give examples, talk about specific tactics, everything becomes more concrete and actionable. So the next thing I want to talk about is I usually, I've been advising my students. I do teach in a college, graduate students here in Toronto, and I do give them advice to document their journeys. Gary Vee has a very popular video about documenting, not creating. I think it's something of that sort. Anyway, so I've been giving my students the advice to document their journeys when they are in their work terms specifically, because as soon as they finish the work term in a matter of like 3 months, they're going to go off and start looking for full-time opportunities. But what I always find is that they find it confusing to identify what exactly to share. And especially when it comes to talking about negative experiences, or um, or the areas where they feel like they're not good enough, right? So some of us see it some of us see it as, oh no, that is a gap that I have, and I don't know how to fill that gap. Like that could be a skill, that could be, I don't know, the ability to use a tool, something of that sort. So, especially when it comes to talking about the failures or the negative emotions and those things, do you have any tactics, or like what is your method of approaching the negative side of things?
Yeah, I think the first thing we need to realize is that if you look around your friends, if someone is presenting themselves as like a know-it-all, like an expert, they always like to like be the go-to for a topic. Do you like this person? Most of the time we don't,
Yeah, can you
because
relate? No.
yeah, because we actually don't really enjoy someone presenting themselves as an expert. So if you change your perspective that way and you look around yourself in real life, you realize that the people that you have a better connection with are the people that actually open up to you. You grab a glass of drink and then you sit next to a fire and then you chat about the deep emotions, deep reflections. So a lot of people, they cannot connect this dot with the online world, but to me it's exactly the same. Like, if you can open up to your friend next to you in real life, try to open it up to the online world as well. So this is the first thing I want to talk about. The second thing is, it's hard to share failures and like negative things. That's for sure. I'm not saying it's easy. You need to like practice to get over it. But I think I have one trick basically. Instead of just saying you failed or you suck at something, and that project a bad image of yourself, I always turn it around by talking about what I learned from that experience. Because if you imagine reading a tweet from Elif, and then Elif was like, I suck at cooking. To me, that tweet has no value. Yeah. Okay, Elif is not good at cooking, so what? But if Elif is saying, oh, I suck at cooking, but then I did this, and then my dishes started to taste better, then for me, when I'm reading this story, I'm like, oh, okay, I suck at cooking too. Oh, maybe I can do the same. So you see, as long as you put like a lesson learned behind the negative things, it suddenly becomes a valuable lesson for other people to learn. So actually, this question from you, I hear it all the time. And I always tell people, hey, before you share something, just think whether someone else can learn from you or not. If they cannot, then don't share it. You don't have to share everything online. If they can, share it. For example, I'll give you an example. Like, a lot of people, they would say, I'm going to this place for a Sunday brunch on Twitter. That's not, to me, you don't have to share that because who wants to know that? I don't care. But if you're new to the internet and you say, oh, I got my first 5 email subscribers, and you talk about like how hard it is and how you got them, where you found them, that's a really good story. So that's the second thing.
Okay,
forgot about the last thing.
As well as turning negative stories into learnings, or attaching the learnings, takeaways to those stories.
Oh, I remember my last point. If you really get intimidated by sharing negative things, a good trick is just be upfront about it. For example, for myself, I don't think I have accent in my English, so I know that, and I think people know that as well. So what I do is I'm just upfront about it. I'm like, okay, this is my accent, so what? Like, like you can laugh at it, but this is me. So as long as you're upfront about something that you're weak at, I think you just basically take away all the fear you have in yourself. Yeah, pretty powerful. Everyone should try it.
I agree. I actually really like challenges that help you to, well, at least try to overcome things you're scared of, things you feel vulnerable about. Like even that asking for a 10% discount when you're grabbing coffee at a coffee shop, those types of things that intimidate you. Or I recently read another challenge, which is you see someone in a coffee shop reading a newspaper, go ahead and ask if you can get the newspaper, like if you can borrow the newspaper. And especially in COVID times, obviously it's a little bit, weird now, but those types of challenges I really like. And I feel this is somewhat similar because you're facing the part of you that is scared to share something, or intimidated or feel vulnerable about it. And also, I think we didn't touch upon the first point that you made enough, because you get comfortable sharing when you practice, when you just do it over and over again, and when you don't give up on, your attempts to share. With practice, I just feel you've become more comfortable with it. That's exactly what happened with me as well. I was someone who thought that I should only share the good sides and, the shiny features that I have, my abilities and my skills where I'm good at, but not the ones that I'm not so good at. There are other people that are better than me. So let's not highlight those things. That's what I thought in the past. But now, if I'm learning something new, which I feel somewhat happened to me with the YouTube experience because I had zero idea what I was doing in front of a video camera. And that was my learning journey. And I started to share the struggles as well, and the struggles of doing it as a new mom, because initially when I started, I had like my baby in my hands when I was filming the videos, and that was my vulnerable side in a way. um, but yeah, and with practice, it just gets better and you feel more comfortable. Anyway, so I wanted to kind of emphasize that point. We have a good question that I think adds well on top of this conversation, which is, what are examples of things you shouldn't share? Are there anything, is there anything that we should absolutely stay away from that could
Yeah,
damage your brand?
yeah, good question. So there's so much you can share, right? I personally think it's all about finding the comfortable line that you personally have. For example, I actually share my revenue, expenses, and net profit of my online business on my blog. So everyone can see how much I'm making every single month and where I spend the money. So if I'm making not a lot, they will see it. So to a lot of people, this is just scary. Like, I am already not making a lot and then I need to tell the whole world. That is scary. But then to some people, they're like, I feel good about it. I think that can keep me accountable. So this question, I cannot have a definite answer because everyone is different. But what I encourage people to do is find out where you are. Like, what's the maximum transparency you can share? Is it like failing at your interviews? Is it like your family stories? Is it like how much money you have left in your bank? Try to seek that line and then perhaps just stay within the line, within the boundary for now. But I can tell you that if you want to be an entrepreneur one day, if you want to build a personal brand, the further you push the line, the better you'll be when people compare you to the other people. Because imagine someone is very afraid to share and all he or she can share is like mini lessons in the journey. But then Kevon here is sharing all the numbers and like being really transparent about what I learned. Who are people drawn to? It's definitely the people who are going further down to teach people something. So find your line, but try to push it
I think
at
it
your own
also
pace.
depends on how you tell the stories too. Like if in terms of maybe sharing something negative, let's say that you've had a terrible interview experience, you would, preferably you'd share the experience in a sensible manner, noticing that it might be seen by that company that you interviewed or that person that you interviewed with. So I think that is a red line, for example. Like, I wouldn't want to damage my name by naming people out there in the online world, because you leave a footprint. Whatever you do, like, it leaves a footprint, and it doesn't mean that you cannot make mistakes in the online space. Everyone makes mistakes, but when it's like naming or tagging people with, I guess, a bad experience, then it's a different thing. It's not focused on your learning and the value you can give to other people, but it's more about you just venting out. So I feel that could be a red line, for example.
I think you 100%. I agree with you. Like, we should all focus on ourselves, but not talking about others. Yeah, right on.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we have another good question from Abiola. Thanks for your questions. So she says, or he, sorry if I'm saying anything wrong, but for someone who has never shared stuff, don't even have a Twitter account, what's a good way to start?
The first thing is, okay, let's imagine you are a new student entering a new school. You just apply to a new school and you're getting there. Do you think you're going to be going around to student and trying to kick off conversations, but you don't know anyone? What you should be doing is you should go to different student groups and try to blend in and listen to what they're talking about. So if we take this example and move it online, you basically don't need to try too hard to be like, oh, I have nothing, but today let me start sharing about email marketing. I'll talk all about email marketing. You don't have to do that. What you should be doing is, okay, think about your interests. Maybe your interest is in NFT these days, like it's super hot. Find a small group of people that actually NFT is a bad example. It's like too crazy. Let's say no code, like I don't know if you have heard of no code, but like basically you can build website or web tools without typing code. That is a movement that is very happening right now. And if you say, oh, I want to be around these people, then you go online and you find a small community of people and try to make friends with like maybe 10 or 20 of them online. So you get yourself there, listen to what they talk about, join the conversation, engage with people, and then you hear a ton about no code. And as you're learning and talking to people, try to get those learning and share it on your own account. I think that's the best way to share, because a lot of people actually struggle with getting people to listen to them. So if you're just like so focused on your own account, you'll fail. You'll give up on this because no one is engaging back to you. So the first step is actually to make friends and be part of the community before you can establish yourself.
Okay, so yeah, that's really good advice. So finding your tribe, making friends. And I believe you have a content that's called Making Twitter Friends, or Making Friends on Twitter. I'm gonna put the link in the description box of the video later on for people to check out. I think that could be valuable, right?
Yeah,
And
definitely. Thank you.
the second point that I was thinking for anyone who is, who's just starting out, who's just considering to start out, uh, I'd probably say choose a channel. Pick one channel, probably not distribute your attention to multiple platforms. And that was going to be something that I am going to ask you too. One thing that, from my experience, I found to be difficult was I spread myself too thin between managing so many different accounts and platforms. Like I had a blog, but blog is never enough because you need channels to distribute it. So I had, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and for different types of content, I found different channels to be more relevant. And then I had YouTube. So it's just like I found myself spreading too thin between all of the effort for content creation. Lately, I'm realizing I'm becoming more of a Twitter person, and there are some reasons for that. But yeah, so I wanted to ask you about the channel. So which channel should people pick if they're job seekers or if they're entrepreneurs? Maybe they are like different segments. So I could think of them as having different main channels. And also, why did you choose Twitter? Because you said, a year ago you were nobody online, so you didn't actually have an active channel. How come you chose Twitter? What were the reasons for that? And I guess, I mean, I'm assuming you're happy with choosing Twitter, but like, what are the reasons that you are with Twitter?
Yeah. First of all, I think if you clearly know who you want to be around, like the target audience, even if you're not starting a business, like you should know who you want to be around, then you should go to a place where they hang out. But the thing why Twitter stands out from the rest is, if you think about it, like YouTube is more about like posting videos and then you can engage with people in comments. But as a new person, it's so hard. Like if you're not even comfortable expressing yourself, doing video is It's not gonna work. And then Instagram is all about photos. It's so hard to like have conversation with people. So unless you're doing like modeling, foodie blogger, that type of things, it doesn't work as well. So what really remains is Twitter and LinkedIn, because these two platforms are more, conversational based.
Networking
But
focus, I feel.
networking, you can make friends, you can post content, that type of purpose. But why Twitter is especially interesting, I think, is because LinkedIn, the way they set it up is that you post something quite big and then people just comment once.
Yeah.
But it's not really a conversation. But on Twitter, it can be just a line of things. You can have emojis. It's really just like having a conversation with people, but in public. And with that, you develop friendships, you develop relationships. And that's what is going to help when you do your sharing and when you meet new people. So I think that's why Twitter stands out. But for me, especially because I like to surround myself with entrepreneurs. And nowadays, I'm only helping entrepreneurs, basically, or entrepreneurs wannabe. So Twitter is really the best place because it's where entrepreneurs hang out. And also, it's a very supportive community if you surround yourself with the right people. But I have to warn you, though, Twitter can be super messy. Like if you follow celebrities, if you follow politicians, if you follow the wrong people, it can be like a disaster. But if you follow the right people, for example, if you're in education, you follow the right educators. If you're in business, you follow the right entrepreneurs. I can pretty much say that you will have a very supportive community to hang out with and share your ups and downs and get feedback for yourself and just really enjoy the journey. Yeah, you don't really need to use Twitter to find customers or find jobs, but maybe use it at least for a place to find yourself. So
Yeah, finding your voice, finding people you learn from and people you enjoy hanging out with, because if you're a job seeker, they can potentially become your employers in the future. And if you're an entrepreneur, then they can be the people you get support from, get feedback from, and all of that. I do agree with that. That's also my observation with Twitter. I don't know why I haven't been an active Twitter person in the past. Uh, I was seriously focusing on LinkedIn because I thought that, my content resonates more with people on LinkedIn. However, the real-time engagement um, features of Twitter are more appealing because I feel it's more like a testing ground. Because for LinkedIn, you have to have like these very perfect, modeled, structured posts, and the algorithm really plays with you with the different content types that you create. But I feel it's a little bit different with Twitter, or I don't know. We're gonna see. I'm not like I haven't been on Twitter for a very long time, but that's so far my observation. So we have another question about what about Facebook? What do you think about Facebook? Maybe groups, or I can't see a good way to share your journey on Facebook, to be honest, unless you have a page or a group. But again, that means you need people to be attracted to follow your page or group. So it's a little bit of a different case, I feel.
yeah, I'm not an expert in Facebook because personally I don't use it anymore. I use it when I'm like a college student, but not anymore. That I think you have a good point. Like for Facebook, people need to discover you and intentionally um, click follow you to hear more from you, and that is a big friction. But on Twitter, as long as your friend is into something or talk to someone and then you scroll your feed, you can see it and you can hop in. So it's a lot more casual and your exposure on Twitter can be enormous
Yeah.
if your friends are helping you out.
True.
So
Yeah, getting exposure on your content or on your profile is easier than Facebook. So I think a good feature of Facebook, which I don't use that often, but I know that a lot of people benefit from this, is they use it to join the conversations in other groups that already have people with a similar mindset or share something similar with you. So maybe the finding your tribe, making friends piece on Facebook could work. With the groups and pages on Facebook, my comment would be, because I do have a Facebook page and a group, the page is no longer, like, I don't actually use it. The group, yes, I have a private group, but people find the group because they watch my content, and the group is linked in my content descriptions. So there is a way for people to find. Then what happens is, yes, you do have a group of people that are exactly in the same like community as you are. They share something very specific with you, so they join the group. But and then once they do, the conversation is really good. Like, it Facebook is conversational too. But the exposure piece is different. So you maybe need to build a brand first and then drive your audience into a private group on Facebook. I can see that working, but not necessarily to share your content when you're just starting out. I can't see that necessarily happening, but maybe someone has an opinion on that. I don't know.
I think to give a picture, I think Twitter is more like an auditorium where random people can see you on stage. But then Facebook is more like a classroom, you know, you invite people you already know in there, and then it's like a small community.
Yeah. I that's my opinion on Facebook too. But good question. It gave us some opportunity to think real time and like think how the channel would work. So any other questions, guys? I think I've covered all the questions I wanted to ask. I think I've learned a lot from this conversation. I feel there was a lot of value for our viewers to take away. But yeah, if you have any further questions, just leave them in the chat, and then we'll do like a couple of final minutes of Q&A. And I know it's pretty late for you, so we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, that's totally okay.
Yeah, I know we took a lot of time already. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll put all the important relevant links that you have for your content in the description box below. And guys, Kevon is actually teaching a course on building in public. So if you are more on the entrepreneur side rather than the job seeker side, I think that course could be really beneficial for you. And the focus is on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I'm very Twitter oriented.
Yeah, so if that's something that that speaks to you, then you'll have a link in the description for that too. Okay, we have one final question and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
As a first-year student, what content should I start with, or would I start with? I'd say focus on the school experience and discovering your interests, because as a first-year student, you're probably just taking electives, maybe trying to decide what you really enjoy. The interesting thing is there's, I think, a very rare group of people that continue their professions in the area that they study in. And by the fourth year of university, you might already have a different opinion about what you're interested in, or you've discovered something new about yourself. So I can see it being like the discovery, like that self-discovery journey, I guess. And maybe all the side projects that you're doing, maybe if you're in student groups, if you're already working on your resume or something, you can talk about that. Depends on your interests, I guess. But yeah, that's my take. What's your take, Kevon?
When I hear that question, I was just reflecting on my own university days. Like I was a very good student. I study hard for my classes. I do all the homework. But one thing that I regret not doing is getting the real life experience as early as possible. Like I didn't. So if you're in your first year, I would recommend you to get online, get a Twitter account, follow like 50 people that you admire as an expert in their field, and just observe what they're talking about, and maybe create some small projects online, collaborate with people online, not in your school, and just get that exposure. And at that point you don't have a lot of pressure to make it work. You can just really have fun. And then I think if you do that, you have tons to share because of all the conversations and collaboration. I really wish that I had that experience, but it's my biggest regret. So yeah.
Yeah. I can I feel the same way a little bit. I was really focused on, well, we didn't have that much of a not like having an online presence wasn't really a thing when I was a university student. So, I'm not going to pressure myself too much on the fact that I didn't have an online presence. But yeah, in terms of the real life experience and meeting people in the areas that I'm interested in, or people that are experts, like, and getting their ideas, doing like just having even casual conversations with them to learn about how they think, how they approach things, that could have been so helpful. So that's something I can also recommend as well. And now that all the channels are so like engraved in our lives, it's just so much easier to pick one and start creating something. So yeah, that's my take. But thanks for that question. Okay, so you're in the marketing field. So what I do, specifically if you're a marketing student, is either if you have any side projects that you're starting, interested in starting, that could be a blog, a website, maybe the no code trend that's happening. That is like really interesting for me, for example. Or maybe you are really interested in social media and you can start sharing how you create on TikTok, or how you create videos, or how you learn Canva for a design class that you may have. Or you may talk about something you learned in class that is more of a theoretical thing, like maybe how to create a marketing campaign that you learn in theory, and then apply those learnings in a real life concept, and maybe criticize a campaign that you've seen lately, like maybe criticize a Halloween campaign or a Christmas campaign or something. So depending on your interest, like it really depends on what you like to do outside of school. I think those things can become the things that you share about, or start to learn more about. Not necessarily what you are exactly learning in classes, but what you're going through as a student, or some area that you're learning more about, and all of that. Maybe you're learning about NFT marketing. Who knows? Like if I was a student now, I'd put some I'd give some attention to it.
Yeah, I had a pretty wild idea as you were talking. Like, because when 10 years ago when I was in school, like, this is not that happening online. But now that like all of you are watching YouTube and like reading so much content here and there, what if you just like find your favorite YouTubers, like maybe Elif, and like you go bold and reach out to this YouTuber and say, I'm a university student. What help do you need? I can do it for free. I can like volunteer. And when you're working with someone who is already in the field, that's a real project, and you can share a ton from that experience. And it is easier this way because, first of all, you already like that person. Second of all, it's not your own project, so that it has a bit of pressure. You have to deliver. If it's your own project, you might like change your mind next week.
Yeah, the
So I think
accountability is that hits later on. I think you're not that accountable to yourself.
exactly. So I thought about this as you were talking.
Yeah, that's actually something I suggest all the time as well, because so many people struggle with, I need experience and where do I start? And the limited number of internships, the limited number of entry-level positions, those feel like restrictions and limitations. But my suggestion, and I can say this now after working for so many years, I wouldn't be able to say this if I was just starting out, but now after all those years of experience, I know that the best way to start is, as you said, like pick someone that you really admire the work of. Like that's so easy to do. Just reach out and see if you can collaborate, if you can provide value in any way. And maybe already as a student, like as even as a second year, first year student, you can start making off money as well. Like maybe you do a trial period and then it becomes an actual work. And I can't see anything more precious than starting to gain that experience already with so much less pressure on yourself because, later on in the life, when you have your own rent to pay, when you have like expenses, family, and all of that, you're going to have the pressure to make enough money to survive and thrive. But as a student, you don't necessarily have that much of a pressure on yourself yet. So if I could go back, I would definitely take advantage of that.
Yeah, if there's only one like career advice I need to give, it would be the person that you work under or the person that you shadow is going to change your life and change your career. Pick the right person and you'll be flying.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like Wi-Fi high five to that. Okay, that's a great note to wrap up the conversation. Thanks so much for anyone who joined us live and for those who will watch later on the recording of the session. You can still leave your comments or questions down below, and if there's something that Kevon needs to address, I'll call him in.
And I think you're supposed to leave the thumbs up.
Yeah. This is so
Yeah.
interesting. Always my guests remind of this call to action, but yeah, leave a thumbs up and
I just want to
subscribe
find
to
something to
the
say.
first video you came across.
Well, thanks for having me. I had a lot of
Everyone and
fun.
everyone who watched us. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Bye
All
bye.
right. See you next time. Bye bye.